I love me some good old racing games. Going around interesting tracks at high speeds and in all sorts of different vehicles ranging from cars to go-karts and everything in between is hugely satisfying. If you're familiar enough with my videos, then you already know that out of all the amazing racing games out there, F-Zero GX is my favorite of the bunch. And if you're not familiar with my videos, then well, I just told you. I've mentioned before that it's my favorite racing game and kind of given some little details as to why I love it so much, but I haven't really gone into the details of what make it so good, so strap yourselves in, let's go through some Mobius rings and loops and fuck it, bring on the premise. F-Zero GX takes place just 1 year after the events in F-Zero X, the standout big brother on my beloved N64. Turns out, Captain Falcon became the ringmaster of the crazy circus that is the F-Zero GP Tour, becoming world champion and boosting his already sky-high popularity to legendary proportions. See what I did there? Upon his victory, the F-Zero Committee, in their infinite wisdom, creates 2 more GPs, the GX and AX Cups. All racers from the X Cup will go straight to the GX, while newbies and former champs get to slug it out in the AX competition. We then see Deathborn, some masked evil entity of bullshit, tell the slightly less evil nemesis to our hero, Black Shadow, that if he does not win the finale, that there will be dire consequences. As it so happens, Deathborn only wants the belt for winning the GP to combine with his own belt of darkness, thus giving him the power to destroy a whole freaking galaxy. With this in mind, the story of the game takes you along a thrill ride as you race along not only the fabled Red Canyon, but take out a gang, escape an explosion, stop yourself from exploding, and save the galaxy from imminent destruction. Just another day in the life of Captain Falcon. The story is just about what you would expect from an F-Zero game. It's silly and over the top and fits right in. Story isn't necessarily what I'd set out to play with an F-Zero game, but it's got some different kinds of tracks, and overall it's got some awesome cinematic elements, the GameCube not being powerful enough to be damned. But there's one little thing about the game that I've got to mention, regardless of the story, and that's that, well, it's pretty fucking hard. Now, I'm all for games being difficult. In fact, I have at times somewhat lambasted gaming in recent years for treating gamers like idiots and toning down the difficulty. Yeah, F-Zero GX could have been ever so slightly more kind in its approach. When you first play the game, you'll probably find Standard to be taxing, especially on the latter races and story chapters, but once you get up to Master difficulty, everything changes. For the sake of adding gameplay into one nice giant section of awesomeness, let's take a look at one of my runs through a race on Master difficulty and break down the mechanics. From the start, you have the option to move a slider and choose whether you want the balance biased more towards acceleration or speed. On Standard, it probably doesn't matter too much, but when you move on to Master difficulty, you want that shit maxed out to speed. The game is relentless in how fast you go, so the more speed you can have in hand, the more likely you'll stay out in front. And no, this game isn't like others where you max out speed and suddenly you can't turn for shit, but more on that later. Starting out through the first lap, no one has boost power, so if you have that speed in hand and drive well, you'll eventually pass most, if not everyone, and be right out in front when that second lap hits. But once that happens, well, you better buckle up. Lap 2 marks the moment you have access to your boost power, and if you're on Master, the computer-controlled opponents are immediately going to boost like there's no tomorrow. So what do? Well, I think it's pretty obvious by my footage. You do exactly the same. The only problem is A, when you're boosting, you're obviously traveling at much higher speeds and it becomes harder to control your vehicle. And B, boosting drains your ship's energy. When that shit hits 0, boom, you are done. To compensate for this, tracks will have healing pads you can drive over that restore energy. The trick then is to plan it out. How much energy can you use up boosting before you hit a healing pad? Is the healing pad going to be long enough to restore your energy? Perhaps the track has more healing pads and thusly you can stay out at ludicrous speeds for longer. There's a lot of strategy and quick thinking involved for preparing for every turn and controlling your ships at high speeds, and it makes for some pretty hair-raising stuff. So then, the one real thing that you gotta think about here, and it's not a word you guys are gonna like to hear, is, well, you have to practice. While control does vary ship to ship, the general controls for the game are easy to grasp. One button controls throttle, another for brakes, another for boost, and generally that's all you need. I mentioned before that turning at high speeds isn't crappy like you might think, and the secret there lies in using the L and R triggers. The triggers give you a way of leaning into corners, but simply pressing them doesn't always cut it. In this case, a quick 1-2 from the opposite direction you want to go into the direction of the turn whilst maneuvering your ship results in a quick turn that eats up tight corners like I eat at breakfast in the morning. It scarfs that shit right up. There's also a lot of advanced techniques like hitting the edges that gives you an extra boost, snaking, momentum throttling, all of this other stuff that give a lot of depth to a game that you think would be really simple, but before you can even get into any of that stuff, well, you guys gotta pick a character first. The game is reliant on 3 statistics for each racer: body, boost, and grip, with ratings going from E to A. And that doesn't mean everyone with the rating EAC is going to have the same top speed or even quite the exact same handling, and that's where it all comes down to experimentation. Once you find a character you like, it's all about going through the races over and over again, mapping out every boost pad location and figuring out when to go all out with boosting and when to lay off through a particularly difficult section. This need to practice to become solid at the game might be a turnoff for some, understandably, but after hours of playing and getting better, when you finally keep up with the pack and make your mark on master difficulty, man, there is almost nothing quite like that satisfaction. Being patient about when to attack and when to show restraint are paramount if you want to win. You can't simply mash down the boost button all the time and deplete your energy straight to zero. You put yourself at too much risk of taking the slightest touch and turning into a smoldering wreck. Likewise, if you can't keep your head and maintain control of your ship, even under stressful situations, you're going to fall to your death. And lives are all too important when you're trying to win at the highest setting. Now that's all well and good in regards to difficulty and gameplay, but what about the tracks, right? I mean, that's what we're racing on. They should be good, right? Right, and as you might expect with the rest of this game, they do not disappoint. Courses from previous scene worlds like Mute City, Big Blue, Port Town, and Sound Ocean all return to the fold, alongside new places like Green Plant, Casino Palace, Lightning, and more. Tracks steadily ramp in difficulty, not only with each cup, but within the GPs as well, and as you might expect, they're full of big drops, corkscrews, loops, tight turns, undulations, and a whole lot of peril. Just about every track is fun in its own way, and everyone will have their favorites. It's just a shame that we didn't see Red Canyon make an appearance beyond the story. There could have been some fantastic tracks to race on there. Not only are the tracks fun and designed well, but the surrounding environments are equally pleasing and add a lot of depth. In order for gameplay in F-Zero X to be crisp and fluid, the surrounding environments were essentially non-existent, and that kinda sucked. And while the tracks are fun, they can be a little lackluster as far as appearances go. GX finally provided the opportunity to craft detailed environments for tracks to wind through. Overgrowth, piping, buildings, and more make up all the little details that make tracks so fantastic and eye-catching. A game this intense between its gameplay and track designs just wouldn't be complete if it didn't have equally potent music, and the songs in GX are amazing. Each song suits the feel of the corresponding track well and gets you in the zone to go all out as you hurtle through every twist and turn. Once you get onto the final lap, the songs take a turn as they amplify the already tense nature as you make sure to not hurtle to a fiery death. In particular, I like the songs for Casino Palace, Firefield, and Port Town the most, but they're all fantastic. Which ones do you enjoy the most if you've played the game? F-Zero GX is not a game you can pick up and play on master difficulty right away. It takes a lot of time to practice and get used to the tracks, find a character you like, and really get those techniques down. But man, once you do and you beat those tough story chapters and get those high levels of speed on master, there is nothing quite like those levels of satisfaction. And with that said, I gotta give this game the rating of Legend, and I am Wally the Legend. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time.